Nobel Prize winning author Han Kang has a new book out after several years of not publishing anything. Was that book worth the wait? Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to a review of Han Kang's latest novel, We Do Not Part, which I just finished reading this week, and I really wanted to get my thoughts out in a review as fast as I possibly could. Now, one thing I will tell you is that this is a book that made me think. It's a book I'm still thinking about. It's a book I'm still thinking my way through. So it's possible that some of my opinions about the book will change. It's possible I'll think new thoughts about the book and go, oh yeah, it was really this. But generally speaking, when I read a book like this and it causes me to think for a long period of time, my appreciation of the book almost always only improves. It rarely gets worse. So I thought I would go ahead and give you this review. So do I think the book is worth the wait? Yes, I definitely do. I've read two of the books by Han Kang, Human Acts and The Vegetarian. I like both. I thought Human Acts was extraordinary. I think The Vegetarian is a really good book, and I think We Do Not Part is a really good book. So I thought I would just real quickly kind of tell you some of my thoughts about it, tell you a little bit about the book, and then, let that be it. So I did want to kind of talk about the plot of the book just a little bit, because I do think it's interesting, and I do think it kind of, that plot kind of ties the three works by Han Kang I've read together in some way. So this book involves a main character who has finished writing and published a book about the 1980 Gwangju massacre of citizens who are protesting for democracy, which took place in South Korea. Now, if you've read Human Acts, you know that that is what the book Human Acts is set. It is about. It's when it's set, and so you might be tempted to think that Han Kang is the main character in the book. If that's true, I don't think it's true in a literal sense. I think it's true in a sense that this is a story based on her dreams, because what we find then with our main character, this author, is that after she publishes this book, she begins to have this dream. A dream that involves the ocean, a dream that involves dead bodies, and a dream that involves desperate attempts to save, preserve those bodies. And that dream kind of plagues her over and over again. It prevents her from sleeping. She can't eat. She is literally wasting away, and she's become obsessed with the idea of her own death, so much so that she obsessively writes and rewrites a letter that she intends to leave behind for her survivors, her beneficiaries, kind of directing them what to do, what she wants them to do once she's dead. She writes that letter over and over again. That is interrupted when she gets a text message from a friend of hers who she hadn't spoken to for some time, but to whom she has been incredibly close in the past. And that friend is summoning her to a hospital and gives her kind of a cryptic instructions about what to bring with her. And I'm just going to leave any other plot description right there. Because from there, the novel evolves into all kinds of things. In part, it is a quest novel in which our main character is on a quest to do something. In part, it's kind of a ghost story in which our main character is perhaps, haunted by things that are taking place, things that have taken place in the past. In part, it's historical fiction, outlining, detailing events of another massacre which took place in South Korea on the island of Jeju, I believe is how you pronounce it, in 1948 through 1950, in which a group of citizens of that island who were protesting against kind of this assumptive takeover of the American-backed government of South Korea became victims of extreme violence and massacres and political persecution and torture and all those things. And all that's tied together into this story in really, I think, inventive, creative, haunting, oftentimes quite beautiful ways. I will say that I read this book really quickly. I'm a slow reader. I read this book in 2 days. It's around 250 pages. That's a lot of reading for me to do in 2 days. So I constantly felt drawn back to it. I was thinking about the book all the time that I was reading it, and when I wasn't reading it, I was anxious to get back and read it and finish it and see how it all resolved. And that, to me, is usually a really good recommendation for the book. The book, in some ways, reminded me of Jan Foss's Septology. Don't take that too far. It's not written in the same style, and it's not nearly as repetitive as Foss's book is, or Foss's books are, but it had a kind of a similar feeling to it about it for me. Kind of a character whose head we're in, who is obsessing, who's experiencing things, seeing things, sometimes through the eyes of others, sometimes being narrated to her by her friend, and it's to me was a really intense reading experience that I felt all kinds of emotions, anxiety, grief, you know, an intense kind of worry about what was going to happen, and I think that, you know, kind of powerful emotional reaction also speaks very highly for what the book was able to accomplish. So I thought I would read an example of Kang's prose here in We Do Not Part, because it is different, I think, than the prose we find in, and the style we find in Human Acts and in The Vegetarian. And because of that, I think that it achieves a level of beauty in the writing that perhaps the other two don't always achieve. So let me just read an example of the writing for you. The tide was going out. The waves which loomed like cliffs did not swallow the coast, but were dragged instead out to sea. A basalt desert ran out to the horizon. Volcanic cones emerged from underwater like massive burial mounds, soaked and glittering black. Tens of thousands of fish that had not been swept away with the tide flailed about on the seabed, scales shimmering. Scattered over the black bedrock were the white bones of what might have been sharks or whales, the remains of wrecked ships, gleaming rods of rebar, wood planks wrapped in tattered sails. So I think that writing is a good example of what Kang is able to do in her writing. It is spare, it is simple, it is largely unadorned, and therefore the, you know, kind of the words that are descriptions kind of stick out. Also, I like that example because it ties into a lot of the images that we have in the book. This book is dominated by snow. For the most part, it takes place during a huge snowstorm, which hits Seoul and also hits this island of Jeju, which lies off the south coast of Korea. And snow, in its aspect, to be cold, to be crystalline, to white out things, to change the way things look, to affect our lives, to, you know, all kinds of things, to muffle sound, is a major aspect of this novel. And of course, snow is white, and that contrasts with all the black images, all the dark on white images that recur here in the book, whether it's shadows, whether it's there, you know, talking about volcanic rock, black, glistening, you know, against a white background, whether, you know, it's the things that our character sees. This comes up over and over again, as does, I think, really what is the central message or theme of the book, the connections that exist between people. Because really this is a novel about the connections that we establish or that we have between people, and how those tie us, how those obligate us, how those might come to be obsessions for us, how that might be good, how that might be bad, how that might affect our relationships with other people. And what we see here is a character who is haunted by not just her own experiences, her own memory, not just the, you know, history that she has gone into, but the history and the lives of other people who she's been friends with, or who she's been acquaintance with, or who she meets. And I think in that sense, it is a really powerful statement about the human condition and our connection to other people. Anyway, there you go. There's my review for We Do Not Part by Han Kang. If you've read this book, if you have any other thoughts about Kang's work, my pronunciation of her name, leave those in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you for watching.